Hi, and welcome to the Sheroes Collective podcast. I'm your host, Renee Sparks, and today I have yet another phenomenal Shiro hailing from KZN, and we've had our previous speaker from KZN as well, previous guests from KZN. So we're doing things in KZN at the moment. We have the CEO, founder of Quality First Training and Support, Sharon Padayachee, and she's going to take us through what inspired her to go this route. But Sharon's background is in medical technology, so she's a medtech, and she has worked within the developmental sector in terms of HIV and quality assurance, and then has moved on to start her own company. And she started that in 2021. So she's going to be telling us a little bit about that. Very welcome, Sharon.
Thank you so much, Renee. I'm so honored. I'm so privileged to have finally been meeting you face to face. I know we've been collaborating on other things recently, but thank you so much. I'm so honored.
No, absolute pleasure, absolute pleasure. I've been following your journey on LinkedIn, and I must say that's one of the things that I really admire is that you're constantly providing content around what you do. And so that's really, really something for any woman or any person trying to start an organization. It's really something, or even just a side hustle. Do it so that people can see it as well. I know very often we say we do things in our little corner, and we hope that it affects those people around us. But what we do in quality assurance is really for everyone. So it's really phenomenal. The work you do is really around even the choosing of your name of your company, I think speaks volumes. Quality first. I think that stood out for me because when I made the journey into quality assurance, I remember someone saying to me, it's not a popular road, and it's one where you might not be the favorite person in the room, right? Because you're always reminding people about quality. So what has inspired you? I mean, you've come obviously from public sector, you've come from private sector, then you moved on into civil society, and here you are now, the owner of your own company, which is a lot of hard work. What has kind of helped you or taken you through this journey to get where you are?
I think when I started in my early 20s in private, it was a private pathology lab, very established. I'm coming out of AMPAT, so I grew there. That was my training ground. I really loved it. So early 20s, chemical pathology, that was my background. I worked there was a lot of virology, a lot of molecular, a lot of research. I recently only went to research because I was at Caprisa for a year. Okay. But from the early 20s going to 30s, right into the I would say right into the 40s, was being in the lab. Completely a lab rat, white lab coat, your gloves, your PPE, full PPE. So I think the background was so structured. It was so, it was just quality assurance was nailed constantly in our minds about how important it is about quality control, about proficiency, being competent in whatever you are doing. And the main thing is that our priority is the patient. So we would never ever, our whole thing is about reducing harm, never ever re-bleed the patient for no reason. Private labs, that was what I learned when I got into public, that private labs, because it's private, it's also, we don't want to lose out on a lot of your expenses must be kept down because you don't want to waste. Wastage is a major thing. You don't want to waste. So we were taught right from the start, you do not harm that patient. You do not call them back. If we can get a sample from another lab that has done, if you had a UNE done in certain lab or in certain depot, and the main lab is going to be doing a thyroid function or whichever test, bring that sample, get it couriered. Yeah. Obviously, you're using all the quality methods, your courier and all of that is safe, but not to compromise, not to inconvenience, not compromise that patient. But when I got into public, it's a completely different thing because now you're taking more blood than you're supposed to. Yeah. And then there's a lot of you don't want to do that. So my main goal is not to harm the patient in any way. That is why the basic phlebotomy came in. But if I'm actually going ahead of time. So I left. And whenever I left, I actually worked for Empath, I worked for Lancet. I did work for molecular diagnostics in Westville in KZN, where a lot of forensics and things are done, and a lot of DNA testing. So my background was just all of that, learning about the labs. And I always found it to be so interesting, but also lots of people say we are nerds.
It's
We're the
okay.
nerdy bunch.
I like nerds. It's
Yeah,
not
with the
bad
nerdy
thing.
bunch, can't help it. I think in the beginning, I just thought, no, I need to fight this thing, but I've accepted and I'm okay with it. So we eventually, it was around 2016-ish, I just felt like I've done this for a long time. I was not bored at all in the lab. And it was a shock to my system that I even was called for an interview. It was just a year before that I had sent my CV into Match Research Unit. And then a year later, I got a call at Match Health Systems, which is like a kind of a branch of
Yeah.
And I just said, what job is this? Because I had no idea. And when I eventually started at Match Health Systems, it was a complete eye-opener. Like now you're physically going in. And remember, the private labs are so corporate, everything is so clean, everything is so tidy, and everything is in its place. I went to the first clinic and I got a shock. There was no water.
Yeah.
And there was no quality control being done. And at the time that I started, I'm not sure you would know this as well, that when I just started, there's a lot of quality control that was not done on testing kits.
No, definitely.
Starting out that, and then that was my first question to my manager about, is quality control done on the test kits? And he asked me, what is that?
What is that?
What is that? So that's when I found that like shocking, but then I also found, okay, this is what we are here for.
Yeah.
So my journey at the lab was about the reason why I actually went into the quality bit was Match made me a completely different person in the positive way.
Yeah.
I loved all the private labs, but when I came to Match, I found myself. It was something that made me grow. I worked with the team, and we actually went out to do the SPIRT. We went out to do the SIMS assessments and all of those assessments, make sure that their trainings are done. So I really grew with that. But then I realized that, you know what, this is actually what I really love. We did it in private.
Yeah.
The training I always loved when new students came in, that I will be like mentoring them in some way. And then later on, much later, when you're older, they say, you know, do you know when I came into the lab, you were the one that helped me with this and helped me with that. I can barely remember because most of them are now looking different, so you don't recognize them. But it's a good thing because you realize you actually love the training space. It's not for everybody.
No.
And unfortunately, so that I was talking about empath. When I was in my 20s, there was a young lady that she was a cleaner, general assistant. I was very, very close to her, and I was getting married. You know, at that time, we all got married quite early in our lives. So I was in my 20s and I got married, and she was so excited for me, and she was more or less the same age.
Yeah.
And she said, you have to bring the photographs when you come back. And I was gone for 2 weeks. And when I came back after 2 weeks, I asked for her because now I had like some photographs to show her. Obviously, the album wasn't ready yet, but that time we used albums.
Yes. I'm with you on that one.
So I said, okay, I'll bring some photos for her. And she was not around. And nobody wanted to tell me what happened to her. Like I said, is she not well? And they said, no, she passed away.
Wow.
And within 2 weeks, which I saw a healthy person within 2 weeks, and this is in the early 90s, she passed away. She was HIV positive, which nobody knew at that time. And obviously it had reached a point where she couldn't, and she had a 4-year-old child at that time.
Oh, wow.
And that hit me very, very hard because she was such a close friend.
Yeah.
And I told a pathologist that was in the lab at that time, I said, at some time, we must do something in the community because there has to be some awareness raised because people are not understanding how quickly people are dying. But this was in my 20s and I didn't realize it's reached full circle now. The same pathologist is now kind of collaborating on a lot of things where we are raising awareness. So
Wow.
I think we all need to realize that there's certain things when you say it earlier on, it manifests now. So I'm happy about that.
Yeah, the
And
timeline is not ours.
our East time is not ours. So I'm so grateful to God for his blessings, his grace, his mercy. And I just feel that as women, we have to persevere. Sometimes our journeys are much more harder than the other gender. And we have to see that most of us are mothers as well, because I've got 2 children. So we have to persevere. There's no such thing as giving up. I try and tell most of my classes, there's no such thing. If you can't do this today and you have a certificate and you're not getting employed using that certificate, do something else.
Yeah.
Do something else for that time being. So match was my when I got that was like, okay, this is what you need to do. And when HIV was like mentioned, I thought, oh my word, it's like it's making sense now. So we concentrate a lot on HIV and TB.
Yeah.
And Renee, I think I'm talking a lot. I don't know if you have.
No, you go for it. You go for it. This is about you. So I will jump in. But
Jump
you
in,
go for
okay.
it. You're busy telling us about your journey, and there's no way we can have a further conversation without knowing what has made you tick. So what you're saying is perfectly fine. Go for it.
Thank you. So at Match, we had so many facilities in KZN. We also supported the Eastern Cape and in ECM, so your East London, those facilities, and we supported them by like giving them different resources, but mainly our trainings where we physically went in and saw the gaps, looked at root cause analysis, and developed certain ways that we can make it easy. And I think when you're a facilitator, your job is not to make things difficult. You look at a manual, you look at a guideline, and the best thing to do is make it as simple as possible. Even though those people you are talking to are skilled, they have their own set of skills, own certificates, whatever their roles are. But going there and spending an hour or 2 hours or even half an hour, you need to leave something behind. Exactly. And that was what was the main thing, that we are just not going and leaving a tourniquet there. We have to make sure that we're leaving
ticking
something
a box. Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Yeah, I know the SPIRE-T is like such a checklist that you got to tick, tick, tick. But I remember there was an assessor, a national person that came down. I won't mention names today, but there's most of them actually, they're so dedicated that when they were doing the checklist, I wanted to know, like, because I just started, I want to know how do they use this checklist? Do they just ask? Because in the lab, we tick boxes, but we're still doing the work.
Yeah.
But because you're so compliant, you want to just make sure that everything's ticked. But this national person went around it and like walked around, and then she observed, and then she knew the questions to ask without even worrying about it. And I realized, you know what, this is the right way to do it, because you're dealing with a human being at the end of the day.
It's the engagement, it's not the ticking. And it's about getting that true sense, because if we're all primed for assessments, we know what to say. But I used to love that part as well. So for those listening, the SPIRE-T assessment that Sharon's speaking about, it's very, very specific. You know, in our worlds, we have all these acronyms and things, but basically it's to check the quality assurance or the compliance to the standards linked to HIV testing. And it had a checklist. And I was privileged for the last 4 years to be part of that national team. I was leading the team, and the team is incredible. So what you're speaking about, I know I have such a soft spot for them. So this was our thing. Our thing wasn't about just ticking the box and walking away, but making I love it. There's an expression they have here, make every contact meaningful or count. They're doing it, this type of, it's a slogan that they're running at the moment here in Cape Town. And it really stood out to me last week when I was walking into one of the facilities, and I saw it. So it's even for me, that is what we do within the quality sense. Every session you have with a mentee, with a professional, with whoever, it needs to mean something, and they need to be able to walk out of there saying, I learned something and I can go and teach someone else this. And so I totally get it.
No, that's true. In the lab, I know we had a motto that said, do it right the first time. It's kind of what I do at Quality First as well.
Yeah.
Because you know, sometimes we say, go and double check something. And I wonder, what is double check? Because did you not check the first time? So it's the normal thing for a lab person.
Yeah.
And so even with the facilities, when we are supporting, or any person at all, you're making sure that the first time that you're engaging with them, you engage at the right level.
Yeah.
And leaving something behind that is meaningful. So my journey at Match was one huge learning. I met so many different people, and God works in such a way that he's not, there's nothing that happens that's for no reason.
Yeah.
So my 4 years, just over 4 years at Match, was meeting all the lab managers for NHLS. I met all the facility managers plus their staff.
Beautiful.
We gave them trainings. We hosted them at all the hotels and wherever it was, but we made sure that all of that we engage on a personal level.
Yeah.
So when you're going for assessments or whether you're just going to have a training there, you're meeting them constantly. Then when the retrenchment happened in 2020 in September, they weren't strangers to me, and they were still engaging even after the retrenchment. So it was like 6 months later, they're still engaging. And I said, do you guys know that we were retrenched last year? And they said, yes, but nobody's
replaced you.
Everybody's busy. Everybody's busy, and maybe the focus is different right now. And we know you. So I gave myself 6 months to stay at home because we are human. We need that time. And I gave myself 6 months. And in that 6 months, I registered the company, and I realized there is a need.
Yeah.
And maybe this is what has been placed for me, that I need to actually make sure that quality is the thing.
Yeah.
And I kept stressing about what name am I going to give it, what name, and something that stuck, because what we are doing is training, and I'm staying in contact with so many people from Match and surrounding. We're supporting them. So it was quality first training support. It was like the easy thing for me to just think about. It's kind of, it is full circle.
No, I hear you. And it's beautiful because everything that you've gone through on your journey is kind of packaged in who you are now and how you kind of, provide training and support now. Because I think similarly to you, I with my team now at the end, so we've just gone through this whole process of we are all unemployed because of funding issues, or not issues, but it's part of life, right? We can't be in a space where funding is being reduced in the country, and rightfully so. This program belongs with the Department of Health, so the Department of Health is now going to take this on. But I think that many of us have got the sense of more needs to be done in quality in terms of mentoring, supervision, and that type of energy that you don't really see. I mean, that you're dealing with the public sector with low resources. They don't have access to these things. We are giving them more work, and we know that they cannot even cope with what they currently have. And that's not a saying about their level of competence, but their bandwidth. Like they can only really cope with X amount in a day. And we were specializing in this thing. So, I mean, when you talk about quality, it's all of that. I remember even now when we were doing the transition, I was explaining to them, mentoring isn't just having a conversation and there you go and you say the person's competent. There's a whole process to it. So it's all of those type of quality language that I think in general in public, they just want to take out the bits that kind of they can do, which is like a QIP. I can do a quality improvement plan and I can write those because I get marked on those. But they don't realize that doesn't necessarily speak to Renee, who's still trying to figure this thing out, especially in our quality assurance world, the language, the words. I mean, we roll this out throughout the country, and English is horrible, when you think about RTQII. So that is the HIV quality assurance program. But for people to kind of grasp it, it's hectic. So, I mean, for you I can totally see why there would be a need. So I suppose the next question is, how do you ensure collaboration, or how do you keep that contact with public sector, private sector, making sure that all of them kind of come to your sessions, but also then take what they've learned out elsewhere? Because I think that's the only way that we can actually move past this, is if we keep those collaborations. So what do you think about that?
So I think just stepping back a little bit, I think what happened is, firstly, you are exactly the same. You speak to so many different types of people, and I see that you actually keep that contact. So I maintain contact no matter who they are. So just to give you a little bit of background, when I moved house at the time when we were having the whole retrenchment, And in the middle of all of that, remember we had the discord in KZN. I don't know what else to call it, but we had a little bit of difficulty in KZN. So it was a very uncomfortable time to be out of work and to be deciding on a company, because I registered it just before we had all of that happening. And now I'm thinking, how am I supposed to be having classes? We kind of, firstly, it's COVID. You can't have, then now with all this dangerous things happening, you can't actually have classes. What am I going to do? So for the first, even though I registered in May 2021, I only had my first class around October, November, because I was getting my papers right. Everything was perfect, but we were not safe to really meet everywhere. And COVID it was taking a lot of people. So because I moved house, I had a bit of furniture that I was going to get rid of. So this is on a personal level, but we are speaking about women and to encourage other people that may be going through some difficult times. So I had just 2 pieces of things that were brand new, but because I was moving and I didn't need it at the new space, and I'm in the middle of, I registered my company, canceled my classes. I posted it on my WhatsApp to say, I've just moved, this is for sale, and not thinking anything will happen. So by that, I probably posted it 10 o'clock in the morning. By 8 o'clock that night, it was paid for and collected. So then people got the word that, oh my word, she sells furniture. We don't have the time to sell furniture. We are moving, we're immigrating, we're relocating. Can you please help us? So for 6 months, before I could do my thing, that was what I was doing. So
incredible.
if I have to encourage somebody, motivate somebody not to stay stagnant. Like there was another one of your sheroes that said, don't wait, start anything, start whenever, but just start. So that's what I did. I didn't sit still. And I learned another thing about myself, because before, if somebody has to ask me for something, I would take it out and give it to them, whatever it is. I still do that because I think it's my personality, but now it's like, I didn't realize I could sell things. So I sold those things, any bits of furniture, whether it's antiques, whether it's your normal trendy things, and that's what kept me going for a while.
And you still do that, right?
I still do that because some people are still moving. We still have some people that have some nice pieces of furniture and they help. So I eventually had 3 different drivers from 3 different parts of KZN, North, West, and South.
Incredible.
So we didn't have to really pay ridiculous amounts of money because you're traveling from one end to the other end. And they were all people that I knew because their wives may have been counselors at a clinic. The husbands had a bakkie. They didn't have work. So it was like creating jobs at the end of it.
Incredible.
And so I just feel like there's no such thing as I'm unemployed and I cannot do anything. We had a suicidal counselor who was out of work for a while, and she had grandparents that were quite ill and she couldn't really leave them alone. And she phoned me one day at about 5 in the morning to say, I really don't know what to do. And at 5 in the morning, firstly, I wouldn't normally be taking a call, but for some reason I did. Luckily I did. And she was not in a state of mind that was, I couldn't just abandon her like that and just tell her, you know what, I'll call you later. And she was not, it wasn't safe to do that. So eventually I just had to ask her, listen, what is nearby you? Because even though you can't find a job right now, we're not asking you to leave home because your grandparents are not ill. She didn't have, I don't think she has parents. And she said there were like schools nearby her. And I said, okay, well, what can you do for the schools? No, she was very despondent and down and feeling hopeless. And I just said, you know, why don't you just make lunches for the sandwiches for the children and just see today, let's see today. And if I have to send you anything right now, just to start off and then she said, no, let me just see what I can do. So then she was worried about Tupperware. She needs to have nice Tupperware. And I said, no, don't worry about the Tupperware.
Don't worry.
Make those sandwiches and see. And I think for that day, she made it and she sold and she was shocked that she managed to get some money. And I think recently she'd had a company from nearby her home who's now asking her to make like lunches for their.
Amazing.
So don't sit still, no matter what it is. Whatever else you're destined for will happen. It's not that it's everything's happened for me yet, but it's growing. And the exposure is there. And I think if you're doing everything with the right heart and you are doing it for people, then it'll work.
Yeah. No,
It'll
that's
work.
fantastic. I love what you spoke about now, because we're in October, it's Mental Health Awareness Month, and we don't often think about that. I mean, even thinking about what we've just gone through, what you've gone through, through retrenchment, it's really a big thing. It's a thing where you question yourself. I saw Nokulunga's Zondo post on LinkedIn. I mean, she was also in a really big position at some point for Clinton Health Access Initiative, and also retrenched, and has also come back, started her own wellness facility, and is posting insanely. And what I loved about, she did a post yesterday where she was saying about, you know, how you start feeling about yourself when something like that happens to you. You now question your very existence. You question, like, because if you, especially if you've excelled at what you are doing and you have poured everything into that thing, you now sit and go, okay, that was all pointless. And like, who am I without that? And it's incredible, because what you speak of and what I see in her, this level of, and I know there's a lot of activists that hate the word resilience, but I'm meaning it in the way that you've not given up. You've looked at what else I can do. I've had this conversation with even people from my team to say, we have skills. How do you use your skills? What else can you use? I mean, the example you made now was brilliant, because I haven't even gone to can you cook. You know, I was like, you've been training nationally. You've done things at big scale. So why do you think you can't do this right now? So it's a very important message, really. But also, I love the fact that you gave yourself time, that 6 months. I know not everyone can, but if you are going through something, whether it is to just find someone else, find a group of people that inspire you and can help you get there. Because I think that's also important, who you surround yourself with. I mean, you were one of the people who kind of helped me think through, what am I doing in life after what I've just done? And it's not that I didn't think about it, but I was in that space. And so that space kind of chokes you. And then when you get someone that goes, hey, what are you doing? And why aren't you doing this? So definitely, you've shone a light on utilizing skills, but also finding potential in others, and kind of igniting flames there. So thank you for that. That's amazing.
You're welcome. I think we need to reach out sometimes, because I appreciate it. I'm not on the level where I like, you know, we all want to be at a certain level, but I'm still growing. But I feel like we must reach out to people when there's a need. And like I messaged you at some point, and I was like, oh my word. I even said to Edward, my God, Renee Sparks has just sent me a voice note. I don't know what to do. So it's important, because there's something about what happens here that you just feel like, okay, you are important, you are doing something right. And that word you're talking about, resilience, I think it's grit.
Yes, it's
grit. Because I don't think women actually realize that every day we have that. We're doing 100 things, you're multitasking, and you still got to function at a very high level. You're not just even doing like normal things.
Yeah.
So we have to acknowledge that.
Yeah.
So your whatever you're doing right now, I know this is about me, but whatever you're doing now is you're gonna see it growing to crazy levels.
No, but I think that's the
You understand the background.
This is the power of working with other women. And I think that is even what the Sheroes is trying to unearth, is to say, look here, there is a group of people who have, despite whatever, has actually gone and done things. I mean, I've had a discussion with Lex Lafoy yesterday, who's a rapper, actually the first lady of hip hop in KZN, and she's incredible human being, who's also worked within the HIV prevention space, social media and communications, you know. So it's unbelievable how you can take every little bit of what we've done. And to anyone listening, everything you have gone through on your path is there for a reason.
Yes.
It wasn't if I put it this way, if I had to be told that 4 years down the line, I wouldn't be in the position I was in, 4 years down the line, I'd be looking at a team that now also has to find new jobs and new meaning or purpose. I don't know that I would say, yes, I'd still do this, but I have to be honest, coming on this end now, going and looking back, I've learned so much. And I think that's exactly what you've spoken about. So we take the learnings and we say, you know what? Yes, it's not a nice feeling. It's not the greatest experience, but it's all part of who we are. And I think that is what you can pour into your own space. If I look at the social media presence you've created through your trainings, you see the smiles on people's faces. You see what I love is and you need to correct me, but it looks like you go and you do personal drop-offs of certificates or little gifts.
Yes.
And I always look at this, your setup. I know it sounds maybe really small to people listening, but if you show up at a desk and there is something for you, and it looks like this person is actually, I've prepared for you in this way. It's very different from, oh, there's just a no-name brand pad and some sweets in a hotel. It's very, very different, because we all know if you have the money and you can pay for the venue, you'll get those things. But you've personalized it. I mean, I've seen you've got little keyrings with your name and the company's name on it, it's those small things.
People value that.
Exactly, they do. They really, really do. They really do. And I know we are not trying to say let's give handouts and give whatever, but it is pouring that little bit of yourself into people and for them to understand, okay, if I walk with this, I'm going to remember this, I'm going to speak to someone else about it. It's going to remind me of some silly story that was told in the class and even that. So I mean, I look at you and I can imagine that there's a bit of your personal learnings that you also share during trainings. And I think that's what makes our training so much more, there's magic there. It's not just
magic.
a slide.
Absolutely.
It's not a slide. The slide for me is, I mean, at some point on Saturday, we were doing a facilitation and the TV screen wouldn't talk to the computer anymore. And I was like, okay, it's a sign. Let's just keep talking, because you don't necessarily need that. But so those are some of the things
you see.
Yeah.
That's where you see where you are, because now if you can carry on talking past that slide,
exactly.
you know your work.
Exactly.
You know your work.
Exactly. Yeah.
I feel for women, we need to actually uplift instead of feeling there mustn't be that fear and that discomfort and that like, are they going to take from me? For me, I just share. If there's something that I need to share and I can't
We've had this discussion, right, where we say, and we know this, I think even Lex mentioned it, where you feel like things are being extracted from you all the time. But I loved when you shared and said, even if I know this person is not going to pay me, it's not going to equate to a grant or funding or something, but I've shared so that they have the right knowledge. That is one way of looking at it. The other way is if women actually start working together and have a different way of thinking about this. So yes, maybe I do take something from you, but where along the line do I bring you back into it? Where do we find synergies? Because it's not.
It should be that.
Yeah.
Yes.
No, it should be. So hopefully the collective of Sheroes, this is the type of culture we start building and start thinking about, because it's all about how do we actually embark on this journey together in collaboration with each other, but also that's what we're sharing with those who are coming to the trainings and engaging with us. Because tomorrow
what you've created is openness, which is good, because now you're showing women that may just have a little bit of, is it safe for me to do this? You're showing them that it's okay to share it. And if you share it and it doesn't come back, it's okay. It's still okay, because as I said, when I did, there were people that asked me for stuff and I did share. In my heart, I know I've shared, because whoever they are training is going to be giving the correct information. And the last thing I want is for them to go and obtain the wrong information. So for that part, I'm going to stand firm on that one. Just to tell you that, and to encourage other people as well, as I said, if there's certain things that you're waiting for and it's not happening, because we all are waiting for grants, we all are waiting for some kind of funding, but I realize that we also, we have to move with the times and adapt. And when I first started, we started with the at that time it was RTQII, RTQII, and I know when I got retrenched, and that time in October, November, when I was starting my first class, as you said, it's a very small class. And I used I couldn't afford a venue because the number of people that came, I was worried about catering for it. I was worried about printing and all of that. And I couldn't. So I actually used a relative's photography studio, which was nicely done because they had the white screen and things, but obviously for photo shoots.
Yeah.
But it was a blessing because I used that for the next 3 trainings, and that was my RTQII, and that was it for 2021. And I had the University of Zululand as well, just by word of mouth. One of our national guys mentioned it somewhere in some remote place, and then they used my, without being, I didn't have that credibility on LinkedIn or anything at that time, but I was blessed that they trusted me and they allowed me to give that training in Garden Court in Durban. But then, Renee, that was 2021. January 2022, right till May, there was no work.
Oh, wow.
So that's when the furniture thing came in again. So you have to adapt. And then we spoke because Zama, who was my, now and then you'll see her name coming up.
Yes, I saw Zama.
She worked at Match before as a consulate supervisor. She's got that background. And we spoke and we said, she was also out of work at that time. And we said, you know what? Charlene as well, Charlene Shewe. We were all retrenched around the same time. And we said, okay, if the RTQII is not coming up, people are not asking for that.
Yeah.
But they're asking for the HIV counseling. Why don't we do the HIV counseling? So that came up, and it was during COVID. And we had, we started online classes, and we met for 1 day for the finger prick.
Yeah.
So the botanical gardens was like a venue because it's open space.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we did that from about May till about December.
Incredible. So taking what you have and making
you have to just go with it, and we noticed that we evolved, we adapted the trainings as needs. As the need arose, and then January 2023 was the breakthrough for the basic phlebotomy, because that's actually, as much as I love RTQI, that's the other aspect that I love, because now the HIV one is where you're making sure that people are testing properly, giving the right results. And then the phlebotomy part, which is, remember, it's not a learnership, it's your basic one only for nurses. And that was the one where, this is the one where we training the nurses, so that we are making sure that patients are still going to benefit ultimately. The bloods are taken correctly, results are going to be
so important. I can't tell you, as a nurse, I know, I mean, who trained me to do phlebotomy? Okay, I must be honest, I worked in the UK for 6 years, and that's where I had proper training. But in South Africa, it's, you watch what your colleague does, and you figured it out. And it's painful to tell people that just because I'm standing in front of you with epaulets and as many bars as, it doesn't mean I can do these things. And it's arguments I've had with people in really high positions who think that because they are nurses that you are hiring, they automatically are born with all these skills, and it's really not the truth. So having a training like yours is so important. And I know that you're looking at making phlebotomy for nurses your flagship training, and you're on the right path, because it is something that nurses need to do. And like you said, and it doesn't only affect the HIV space. I mean, it's so much broader than that, right? Because we're taking blood for all sorts of everything. But when you think about HIV, it's that 95, 95, 95, which you're alluding to. So testing people.
Testing first.
95%. Yeah, exactly, which is your RTQII, or your quality assurance of testing. And then you're obviously moving through to provide.
You got my
Yes, no, I got your analogy you're making there. But yeah, so and that was the job that we had. We were holding that space in national, in terms of bringing those 3 95s together to be able to say the one doesn't go without the other. So even if I was HIV negative, there has to be something somewhere. I mean, if you think about syphilis, people are testing syphilis. If you do a rapid test, it reacts, then I'm doing bloods. So there's so many more contacts where we're bringing the clinic and the lab together. But the person
CLI is so important.
Yes,
Yes.
the person who's doing that is the person who you didn't bring along on the journey. So it is such a critical course that you are running. And I love the fact that you've got the models and people get to do the practical experience, which is incredible. Because I mean, if you do something online, you miss that. It's the same with the RTQII. I'm very happy to hear that even if it's online, there's a contact session, because I think that's what people miss. We can do things online, no problem. But that me standing and watching you and you talking through and you actually getting the feel for it is so much different than just an online course. Yeah.
So the online one, we do most of them, all the modules online, but the people that really can't travel, really can't travel. I mean, Limpopo and
they cannot. Please tell us what you do there, because
So we do the one where I send the kids to them. So it's, as you said, it's a personal touch.
Yeah.
The kids may just be your normal testing kits, but then I always add something else to it. They're very happy with getting the certificate. It's so funny that you can send a PDF to somebody, which is exactly the same thing. But when you post them, the hard copy, they like the quality. So I make sure that the quality of the paper that I use or the board that I use, it's such personal things, but people they find that important. So that gets couriered to them, and in that time we're still finishing up the last bit of modules, and they when they receive it, then we all meet as a class, but it's a video call. Because remember, everybody has a laptop. So I'm trying to address people, I'm trying to make it as simple as possible to connect. This is not about we need to have this mini. If you have a laptop, you have Teams, you have Zoom, perfect.
Yes, let's just.
But if you can't, we're going to use another option because you have to be trained. So when they do receive it, we have any of the practical itself. Then I do a little bit of a slide presentation that I share. So they see exactly what I want, and then we do then I observe them. So as much as I can't touch them, but they can't touch me, we have an interaction. They enjoy it. It's so much fun. It's like I take about 2.5 hours, as long as we can take, depending on the number of people in the class. But it's so much fun.
No, that's fantastic. So I mean, you can even add that as a recording, and you have your evidence if you think about quality assurance of that even. So
the compliance. Even with the basic phlebotomy, that is face to face. You cannot have that online. Because we have you saw the practical dummy arms and things that we are using. We have nurses who come in. I told you that they're coming in already saying that they're nurses, they're already taking bloods. Then they are shocked at the assessment, the pre-assessment, to say, I cannot believe I've been doing this wrong all along. And it's no fault of theirs. It's because there's nothing in their training. As you said, you're a nurse. There's nothing in the training. Setting up a drip is very different to phlebotomy.
Yes, exactly.
So we're trying to drill that in and get some support from bigger companies where they are understanding of the need. Because while I was at Match, remember with CLI, you have to work very closely with NHLS, and we used to get those lab rejections monthly. And then you will look at root cause analysis and then provide training. So now the nurses are coming on their own. So we have classes where I don't have, we've had some companies like UKZN, HPP, they are called Human Pathogenesis Program. They've sent their nurses in for trainings. And I've also had, we're trying to get bigger corporates now to do it. But most of the nurses are coming on their own. But it's such a huge, shouldn't say compliment, but it actually speaks to the fact that we are doing the right thing. When you get feedback from them, the reviews to say that we came in not knowing, and that's why we did the wrong thing. Now that we know, there's no way we can go back and do the wrong thing, because we know how much we're harming the patient if we do the wrong thing. So it's like a flip around, and it's good that the mentality is changed, that, I don't just have to put a needle in. I have to make sure that everything is right beforehand.
Exactly. And it's just that. I think when people know, then, the feeling is different. I remember when I sat in my first quality assurance or RTQII training at the time, and as the facilitator, which at that point was Amanda Mutlala, when she was speaking, I sat there going, what? what have I been doing, and you're right. So the minute you know, I mean, there's that expression, if once you know, you do better, right? So, I mean, that is the whole point. And I think that's what I love about facilitation is when those light bulbs go on and you can see it going on in the classroom or in the space and you're like, yes, I've done that. You were saying to me when you sent me a message to say there's no other feeling like it. And it's exactly that. Because you've actually given something and left someone with something that in years to come, they will be challenging the next person. I know I've seen it in counselors where they would say, no, I told that sister, this is not how it's done.
Yeah.
So fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing. I mean, you've taken an experience which most people would think is very, very negative. You've taken it and you've created so much out of that. The fact that you even went and still selling furniture, still doing, it just shows you can take whatever you have, create something of that, look for the opportunities. And thank you. I don't even want to ask you what tips you have because you've given so much. Oh my word.
I think one more thing that I need to say is for people that are not, they feel like they only have that and nothing else. As women, we do adapt. If you're doing so many things at home, we actually can do other things elsewhere. And when you're a nurse, especially like nurses now, if I'm speaking to the nurses, if you're a nurse, you're not just a nurse, because we've seen nurses now evolve into so many different spaces. They are now doing so many, look at you and look at so many of the other nurses who are now running clinics. They're doing their own little mobile kind of work. Counselors are doing exactly the same thing. They are moving into different things where they are learning so much more and they're realizing different things about themselves. When I first registered my company, I was only 6 months old and somebody shared a link with me. I actually didn't share it with me. They had it on their WhatsApp status. It was for SA Home Loans. It's an entrepreneurial program. It's a mentorship thing for new businesses. And you just got to be registered, obviously compliant and everything. For 1 year, I was attending twice a month. I was attending workshops, full day workshops. Well, more or less like 9 to about 1 or 2 o'clock. You're always telling me I'm all over the place with LinkedIn and everything. I realize how important that is to be visible, to have some kind of exposure. And that is where I learned a lot of it, and I realized I'm actually doing the right thing, but I just needed a little more guidance on how to do it properly. And then the next year was SME.TAX at the Sharks Business Center, where we were having monthly chats on sales and finance and legal and your marketing and all the kind of exposure, doing it right. So if there's new people that are running businesses, get the mentorship from the right places. Before you're paying large amounts of money, there's things that you can actually do. And you don't have to pay so much money. There's some things you got to pay, but there's something that you can actually do on your own. If you find you're not creative enough, learn. There's so many. I've watched and listened to so many podcasts and all of those, and there's so many companies that are offering this for free. It's brilliant. Just tap into that and learn so much, because I can't see women not progressing any further if they try. So I'm so grateful to you for this, because it's given me a chance to at least speak about quality first. If anybody obviously is interested in any type of quality when it comes to HIV counseling and testing, because our courses include basic adherence and finger prick. We also have the basic phlebotomy only for nurses and for other professionals, depending on who they are. We just have to see if they're registered with HPCSA or SANC. And we've included now IPC for nurses. So that'll be like, we're trying to see now, because Dr. Khan, if she's going to be part of that. And then your RTQII,
Fantastic. So at the end of this, we will add a little slide with your contact details so people can reach out to you and maybe even some of the images around your training so that they know where to go. But definitely, thank you. That nugget that you gave now at the end was brilliant. I mean, there are free resources available. You just need to look and you need to connect to people. Again, I'm going to say connection is the most important thing. Broaden your network. I mean, we came across each other on LinkedIn. So that happens. You find amazing resources on LinkedIn. I remember when I was looking for training for nurses when I worked at Nakosa, I had found a doctor who now has such a huge training institute, but I found him on LinkedIn, and he started with free training for nurses at the time, and that's how I connected. So it does exist. You just need to look, but also be wary, because like you said, be aware of who it is that you're connecting with. But definitely, I can vouch for you. You're brilliant.
No, not everybody on LinkedIn can be like, you just have to watch.
That's what I'm saying. You do need to look out, because I've also come across a few that you'd be like, okay. So be careful. Do suss people out. Check their credentials. Check what they're posting, and then kind of add up whether this is a real person or not. Because unfortunately, there are scammers out there. But if you're looking for training that we've just spoken about, here's your resource right here. So thank you so much, Sharon. It's been wonderful having you here, and thank you for sharing as openly as you did.
No, thank you very much. I'm so glad to have finally done this, and it's really been an eye-opening experience. Also with you, I'm just wishing you all the best as well. Just for it to grow, and I'm hoping that all the Shiros at some point you're gonna have something where we all meet.
I would love that. I was actually on that by Zanele Sekela, so she actually mentioned, I think you need to have, so it'll come, it'll come. It is definitely something that we're thinking about. So thank you so much.
You can contact Sharon or QFTS on 084 526 7014 or via email by simply typing info@qft